Damn it, Timo. You're frustrating me so much. You've made me dye my hair. It's your fault. Now I match my jacket. That's criminal. What's wrong with you? You should be ashamed of yourself. For this, you're on Bust Watch, Timo Meier. Oh, Timo Meier, I swear you're letting down the entire fantasy world at the moment. It is not fun to own ya. I'll tell you that much. So know that I'm going into this video with owning him. I know what you all are going through, and a lot of you are asking, I think, two things. I think there is the question on one side of what do I do with Timo Meier, and on the other side, it's do I buy low on Timo Meier, or is this for real? And to be honest, the answer is somewhat in the middle in terms of maybe this isn't great for him, but you should also buy low. The answer is somewhere in the middle. There's, like with many of the players that we talk about on here, he is similar in that he fits a lot of molds. There's some positive, there's some negative. What I will tell you is that Timo Meier, the player, looks good, and I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the team that Timo Meier is on in San Jose, because I think they may actually be bad. And I think the ways in which they're bad really hinder his performance and almost anybody's performance on that team, unless you're Evander Kane, because let's be real. Evander Kane can do absolutely no wrong. We know that for a fact. So look, there's always going to be some good, there's always going to be some bad, but let's start first like we always do with deployment, right? And let's take a look at where he's playing. Now, currently he's slotted in as the third line right wing on San Jose with Joe Thornton, Marcus Sorensen. Not the greatest deployment in the world, but I actually do like that he's playing with Joe Thornton. And more than anything, in my eyes, that's an offensive line. And so to me, that speaks to them trying to give Timo Meier more offensive minutes and try to get him to be more offensive, give him more opportunities to succeed offensively. And he is not on the top power play anymore, which is pretty disappointing. He's currently on the second unit with Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, and Brent Burns. Although, honestly, that Brent Burns thing, I don't know if they're actually doing that. I have a feeling that it's more like Carlson and Burns are kind of switching off there, depending on who's playing better in a game or what the coach is kind of feeling. So I would say that he's... Either way, it doesn't matter who's the defenseman on this power play. Timo Meier is not benefiting from being on that second power play unit, and it's good news for LeBanc that he has now taken over that spot from Timo Meier. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was from deployment. Normally, we usually go into how the player's actual stats are doing, but I think more importantly for someone like Timo Meier, and honestly, this is for all the Sharks, is to look at how the Sharks are doing in general as a team. Now, if we go to chartinghockey.ca, if you follow him on Twitter, @chartinghockey, he puts out these really cool graphs every day. And pretty much one of the graphs that has really stuck out to me that he's continued to update every single day, and the Sharks have not moved from this position, is what he calls a reality versus expectation graph. So it's pretty much looking at teams that are they good for real? Are they good but lucky? Are they bad but unlucky, or are they truly really bad? And what we're seeing is who they actually are. The way he does this is he looks at the expected goals per 60 and then the actual goals per 60, and he charts those on a graph. Now, the San Jose Sharks are all the way at the bottom left of the graph. Like, they are the farthest team by a mile, and that bottom left quadrant is indicated as actually bad. And so there's a lot of indicators at the moment that they're actually as bad as they look, and that they actually are as bad as their performances seem to be. And really, the big issue is that they're letting in way more goals than they score. The expected goals for is just so bad for them. They are not getting a lot of expected goals. And on top of that, their expected goals against is extremely high. Part of that is their defense, part of that is their goaltending. But the fact that they're also not scoring goals makes this doubly hard, because what ends up happening is you're expecting to have 2.5-ish goals against every game, and you're only expected to score around 1.8 a game. Your team is going to have a lot of trouble, and that's what we're seeing with the San Jose Sharks. And honestly, their shot rates are just okay. They're not good. Like, do they control shot share? They're all right. Now, on one hand, they are unlucky from a shooting percentage perspective. They are pretty low at around like 7-ish.5, and their goaltending is far, far below average. But if you've watched the Sharks, you don't need advanced stats to tell you the reason that save percentage is low is not necessarily just the defense, but their goaltending is also atrocious. And so all of this culminates in this idea that the Sharks are actually probably as bad as they seem. And they need some kind of change. They need something. Something needs to happen. And until that happens, there's a lot of question marks on if guys like Timo Meier can actually turn it around. But, with a big but, there actually are some indicators that make me think that he can. So let's take a look at his own stats for the year so far. So he's played 13 games. He has 4 points so far, good for a 25-point pace. Lovely, right? Compared to his last year's 69-point pace. Nice. His expected goals for right now are around 3.5, and he has 2. So he's probably missing out on 1 goal at the moment from an expected goal standpoint. Now, one thing that is a big deal with him is his shooting percentage is really down. It's down around 50%. Last year, he shot at 12%. He's currently sitting at around 6%. So that should come up. That'll make a big difference, as you'll want to see him score some more goals, and I think he will. I think he'll pot the puck in the back of the net much more than he has so far. His shot pace is down a little bit, 16%, but I would attribute that 16% entirely to the Sharks being bad. Just because they don't have the puck as much, they're not controlling shot shares. As a system, they're not doing as well. So there's not as much opportunity for a guy like Timo Meier to actually have control of the puck and shoot it as much. That's a big thing. Now, the next thing here, a promising thing is that his IPP is high at 80%. Now, he had an IPP of 73% last year. So the fact that it's at 80%, while not ideal because it's a little bit high, it's not that far off from last year. It's only 10% off. So there's room there, right? The big problem with Timo Meier is that the team, while he's on the ice, is shooting at only 4.6%. That is insanely low. Last year, the Sharks shot at 11% while he was on the ice. So there's a lot of room for growth there. I mean, even let's say if that jumps up to 8-9%, you're looking at a double in the number of goals that he's on the ice for, right? Now, on top of that, though, of course, you have to remember that it's not just about the on-ice shooting percentage, it's also about how many shots happen while they're on the ice. And if the Sharks can't change this tide of not controlling shot share, there just won't be as many shots in general, which means even if that on-ice shooting percentage comes back, which it will, he's not going to have that many goals to factor in on. But I'm not worried about that. So look, I think with the Timo Meier, looking at these stats, that on-ice shooting percentage should come up. His power play shooting percentage is solid. His offensive zone starts are solid. His hit pace is actually up. His block pace is up. His time on the power play is up a little bit. The concerning thing is that his actual percentage of team power play, though, is down. So last year he played 38% of the team's power play time. This year he is again playing 38%. I would love to see that go up. And given that he started on top power play and now he's off of it, that's really disappointing. And I wish that would change. And maybe it will. But it is promising that last year he was able to do what he did with a solid 12% shooting, with not that high of an on-ice shooting percentage, a little bit high, but not terrible. Like, I think a 10% is more reasonable than 11.35, but not bad. And so really what I would like to see is that power play come up. But he did do really well last year without all this extra power play time. Now, one thing that's crazy is I want to go to HockeyViz really quick and show you another thing. So when he's on the ice, the team is significantly better on offense. Well, in general, they suck on offense, but when he's on the ice, they're much better than when he's not on it. And also on defense. I should rephrase that really quick so that it's not misleading. But really what it is they are just as bad with him on the ice on defense as when he's not on it. So he doesn't really make an impact very much on defense. Just as a whole, they kind of suck on defense, and their threat levels are around 10% higher on average than any other team in the league. Now, one thing that's really, really impressive is if we actually go back to his isolated impact. So this is an attempt, HockeyViz tries to make an attempt at what is their isolated impact. So what effect do they specifically have? Not necessarily what the team does around them, but what they do while they're on the ice themselves. And it's insane to look at this and see what his isolated impact is. So for those that end up listening to this via podcast, his isolated impact last year was a plus 30.6% relative to the average on offense. On defense, he brought down threat levels minus 10.1%. This year, he's doing exactly the same thing. On offense, plus 31%. On defense, minus 10%. He makes these Sharks better, and that is a fact. So he needs to be on the ice. That's the way I see it. And if we look at it, look, he has gotten a slight increase in ice time. So yes, it's not great that he's not getting, that much ice time. You'd love to see him top line or something, but just as a whole, he is seeing more ice time than he did last year. So that's a good thing. And I think the shot issue is not so much him, but more so the team. So when I look at a guy like Timo Meier, it's one that on one hand, I'd buy low, 100%, because I still think he's a 60-point guy with good peripherals. So I would buy low on Timo Meier, especially in a peripherals league. In a points-only league, not sure I'd buy that hard. But with the caveat that when I'm buying, I need to make sure that I'm actually buying low. And you want the person who's selling to you to maybe think of them as like a 50, 55 point player, right? A guy who's in a massive slump is not going to turn it around. That's how you want to buy Timo Meier, because the truth of the matter is that with the way the Sharks are playing currently, there is a lot of risk. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's a straight buy low candidate and that he's going to be perfect for you and knock it out of the park soon. I don't know. It's really hard to tell with players like this when the team as a whole is sucking as bad as the Sharks are. And if you believe that the Sharks are going to turn it around, then cool. Go buy Timo Meier 100%. If you're like me and are skeptical of the Sharks and think that they may actually suck, then in that case, you want to be a little bit more cautious with Timo Meier. Now, if you actually own him already, I wouldn't be selling and I wouldn't be dropping. I'd be holding, at least for a little bit more, given that his on-ice shooting percentage is so low and his actual shooting percentage is so low. Those should come back. And when they do, you'll see his point pace come back to normal. Because honestly, a 25-point pace, given how bad everything is happening around him, is actually not that bad. It's kind of impressive. I mean, you're looking at a Jonathan Toews who has better numbers or a Joe Pavelski who has better numbers, and their pace is not that different from Timo Meier's, but their numbers are all sustainable, whereas Timo Meier, everything is unsustainably low. So that's pretty much my message. If you own him, be a little bit more patient. I would advocate not selling. Most likely, you're not going to get what he's worth. And if you don't own him, I would definitely try to target him because you can probably get him really low, but always remember that the Sharks suck and that there is risk involved with Timo Meier. So I wouldn't necessarily trade, for example, a Huberdeau or something like that for Timo Meier because you are taking on a lot of risk, and that deserves to pay a lower price simply because you're taking on risk. So let me know who you'd like to see for the next Bust Watch. I'm thinking about maybe doing Carter Hart. Other than that, thank you for watching. Catch you next time.